It's my honor and privilege to welcome you to yet another edition of the BW Dialogue. We have Mr. R.V. Rajan, who's the former chairman of Anugrah Madison Advertising. Today we're talking to him because he's authored a book in that is...
Durga Niwas.
No, I know. I wanted to bring... the book is called Durga Niwas, and we'll have the cover on the screen again. But it is the biography of a building. So we would encourage you to buy it. But before I get into the book and how the genesis of the book happened, let me tell all our viewers and readers that Mr. Rajan has spent a large part of his career building companies. He's a pioneer in the rural advertising domain and really in some way helped shape the learnings and insights in the discourse of rural advertising. So Mr. Rajan, first of all, how has been the last 9 months for you, both personally and professionally?
Professionally, I have nothing because I quit profession 15 years ago.
Right.
Personally, it's been very, very interesting because I made use of the pandemic and the forced isolation in the house to complete a project which I had undertaken 2 years ago, completed my novel.
Right.
Almost first month I finished the novel. In fact, I mentioned it in my acknowledgement. It took me almost 2 years to write the first 12,000 words. But during the pandemic, within 3 weeks, I wrote 22,000 words and completed the novel. Of course, it took some more time to revise it and all that to bring it out, almost 6-7 months. It has been very good. I've been posting more regularly on my Facebook page. Basically, I've become a completely converted to a writer-author. I have forgotten my rural advertising, rural marketing. Anybody who comes to me asking me any advice on rural marketing, I say, sorry, that was my last life. This life, I'm a writer-author. Let me know anything about writing, I'll help you. So that's it. It is very, very useful. I have nothing to do with my profession now. If you ask me anything about writing, I can talk.
Good. So we'll shift the gears to the book for which we have. It's called Durga Niwas, Biography of a Building. And clearly tell us, how did the idea, the name come about, and tell us what's in the book for our viewers.
Yes. Actually, very interestingly, the chawl where I stayed in Bombay, as I've described, actually the building is just next to Matunga station, Central Station. As you get out of the station, the very first building on the right was called Durga Niwas. The name changed to Sonbai Niwas when the ownership changed from a Maharashtrian gentleman to a Gujarati gentleman, became Sonbai Niwas. But since I was going to write about the characters who stayed in the building, I thought, why not I retain the name Durga Niwas? And since I was going to describe the lives of 9 families who stayed with me on the same floor, whose life I saw from close quarters, I could think of so many incidents, anecdotes and all that. I thought, why not I take up this subject? And it's strictly not a novel, because I'm told if you have to write a novel, it has to be more than 40,000 words. If it is less than 40,000, it's called novella. I call it biography of a building, because in the process of describing the 9 families story, I'm also depicting the building, what it was in the 1940s and early 50s, and what it has become now. It's absolutely become a dead place. Hardly anybody is living there. You go there, it looks like a haunted place, So I thought the building provided me with a wonderful opportunity to describe people. I know a whole gamut of emotions come into this book, because I'm describing 9 families and how they progressed in life over a period of time. And I'm going back into history and telling them why these people in the first place came to stay in such a place, all one room. I'm sure people in Bombay will know what's a chawl. It's a one-room tenement, 225 square feet, just one room. Families stay there. My family consists of 6 people. My parents, my 4 siblings. And there are other people in the building, 9-10 people live in that one room. And 2 toilets to be shared by 50-60 people every morning. I would say it was tough, but it was not boring. It was fun, because the whole building was teeming with people all the time, children, noisy place. It's fun. All age groups had company for themselves. There's no problem. There's no question of getting bored in a chawl. Besides, though people came from different parts of the country, speaking different languages, different traditions, different cultures, we all stayed united. Unity in diversity is something which you can see even today in any chawl. Of course, the Matunga chawl I stayed was slightly better off than the kind of chawls you see in Girgaon and Grant Road and labor areas, Parel and places like that. In my building, most of them were white collar workers or small traders and businessmen. So to the extent, it was a decent place, but without any facilities. So that is the background behind the building, and the title of the building, and the reason why I wrote the novel. Though I had 2, 3 other plots, I chose this because I thought I can write from personal experience.
Fantastic. So you wrote anecdotal, kind of a memoir. You wrote from experience. Now tell us, how has life changed in the last 2 decades? I know 15 years you've not been active in the profession. Now you live in Chennai. Tell us, when you look at city life, what is it that you like about city life, and what is it that you don't like about city life? We'll come to the chapters in the books soon enough. But before I go to the chapters, I want to understand from you that what do you enjoy about city life and what do you miss about city life?
Okay, I'll tell you. I've had the good fortune of staying in 3 cities. Started in Bombay, 29 years, 3 years in Delhi, Chennai for last 46 years. I also used to go to Calcutta because all my bosses were always in Calcutta. I was just telling our friend Kavi that I could kichu gustabari because since I had to deal with the Bengali company, I had to learn Bengali, at least spoken Bengali. I can understand a little bit. So among the 3 cities, Bombay is the most dynamic. I always advise young people, if you have a chance, go and work in Bombay for 3 to 4 years. Get that work culture. You can go up, work anywhere in the world. Delhi, 3 years, nice place, everything slow. Chalta hai attitude. Stuff.
Clearly, you didn't people like me, didn't me?
At that time, I'm talking
like
about
me. If you met me, possibly you wouldn't have said that.
I know. I'm talking about 71, 74.
Yes, I was born in 72, so really you.
In 74, when I came to Madras, it was a shock because work culture was totally different. In Bombay, you can survive if you're a good guy, you work hard. Time is such important for everybody. Everything chalta yaar. If I tell you something tomorrow, I'll give you day after tomorrow. You must accept it. That kind of attitude. It took me 2 years to adjust to Madras work culture. So then I became part of that culture. Though, of course, I maintained my Bombay discipline in terms of time schedules, my commitments, and word of honor and things like that. But Madras, I must say, in the last 46 years, has evolved from a typical big village, it was known as a big village. It's become a cosmopolitan city today. You get people from all over the world. There are big automobile factories here, getting Japanese people and Korean people. In fact, the place where I stay, Adyar, Shastri Nagar precisely, just 10 minutes walk from beautiful Elliott's Beach, Best Nagar Beach. This place has got a lot of expatriates staying here in this colony. A lot of Koreans, Japanese and all that. So you find that Adyar today has got all kinds of cuisines. So I would say Madras has become a cosmopolitan city. The process with the growth has also come. All the typical problems that you face in other cities, heavy traffic, overcrowding, a lot of typical problems that you face in any big city is now happening in Chennai also. But still, it's a good city. Things do work still.
Fantastic. I think you've given a very fair analysis of what Bombay is, what Delhi is, and what Chennai. I don't think I can disagree with you there. So now let me move into the book's chapters. Yep. When you look at the book, which are the chapters? Which are the chapters that you relish the most and why? Which is your most favorite chapter?
Yeah, actually, the very first chapter, where a guy comes visiting the building which he left 40 years ago to pursue his dream job in America. And he says, he comes with a grandson. The whole 10 pages I described. He's shocked to see the building, what it was, what it's become and all that. And then the story goes back to as a kind of throwback on the old times. We describe the 9 families. Then again, it comes back at the end when this fellow attends a grandson's wedding at which he sees, one of his old dear friend there as the grandfather of the bride. They were bum chums the good old days. They lost touch. After 40 years, they becoming relations. So the key point that I'm mentioning, I was telling Kavi there. See, when we were living in a chawl, we had detached toilets, but families were attached. But today, everybody has done well in life. They all have, attached bathrooms, 2 toilets, 3 toilets, fine. In fact, I have today independent home with 6 toilets. 6 bedrooms, 6 toilets. Those days, 56 people had to share 2 toilets.
Right.
So today, people have attached toilet, but families have become detached.
I love that.
That is what's happened today. But at the same time, as I was telling, those days when I was staying there in the chawl, I never missed anything because we didn't know the alternative. Until one came up in life, one got into a job, started moving with people, moving out to visit people's houses and saw how they were living. That's when one realized that one is missing something in life. That's where the idea of doing something in life came in. So in this most important innovation that I've done, actually it's not a typical novel. That's why I'm not calling it novel, I'm calling it a biography. Because 9 families history I'm trying to link. The interesting link here is the loose talk. See, between chapters, there's a chapter called loose talk. Loose talk, toilet talk. I mentioned it as a toilet talk. And this is where a lot of discussion takes place about what's happening in the chawl, continuity, and link to the next chapter. So this goes on. And so I thought it's a very clever device that I have thought of, loose talk, which links chapters. Frankly, I won't say any particular chapter is favorite of mine, except the beginning and the end sums up the whole story. Whereas the chapters flow very fast. In fact, a lot of people have told me it's unputdownable, it's lazy reading. See, I'm a writer who doesn't go into too much of description. A lot of people write. They'll take a building, for 4 pages, they will analyze the building bit by bit. I have no patience for that. Nor do I have a patience to read such description when I'm reading a novel or book. I skip such portions. So I must say, I maintain that kind of a style where a lot of dialogues take place and the story flows seamlessly from one to the other. Only there are too many characters. In fact, when I was circulating the draft among my near and dear ones, one point that came up was there are too many people. How do we remember the names? That's where if you see in the building, in the beginning, I've got a chapter called cast, like you do in the case of a play. The cast. I'm talking about Maharashtrian families, how many members in the family, what are their names, Madrasi, Malayali, Andhra, Gujarati, Bengali, sabka naam diya hai. So that later on, even when I'm writing about the history of the family, I'm mentioning the family name there top. So the link is, the people remember the link. So I would say, generally, it's flown. Very interesting about writing a novel. Say I write a lot of essays. I've written about 400, 500 essays, published, all that fine. Novel, it took me more time because when you're writing a novel, you need a place absolutely yourself, undisturbed. Because you have to go into the world of the characters and their minds, which cannot happen when I'm sitting at home. In fact, after my wife passed away, I manage my own independent home, my portion. My son lives upstairs, but I prefer to have my own space. So, which means the responsibility of running home, lot of disturbance. You're not able to concentrate. But when you go and concentrate, sit in a corner, write like that. When I did that, when I was during the pandemic lockdown period in my daughter's house, 3 weeks she told me, relax, enjoy, don't get disturbed. What happens is, I'm not planning anything. I have this chapter in mind. I sit down to write, and the characters, talk to themselves. This just happens. None of the dialogues is pre-planned. Only the overall concept is in my mind. And this is what I want to write about. This family I'm going to write about today. This episode I'm going to write about. What happens actually, characters take over. Many authors have said this to me. When you're writing a novel, you must be living in that world. You must become that character. Then only you can write a novel. I must say, I went through that experience and thoroughly enjoyed that process.
Beautiful. You already said you hung up your boots on rural advertising, rural marketing, so I won't ask you.
Yeah, I am completely
I
out
want
of
to
it.
ask you, Mr. Rajan, if you had to give 5 principles for a good life, what would those be? You've brought up a family, you built businesses, you now written a book, you lived in 3 cities. If you had to give us some principles of living life, what would those be?
See, I will start with my own, how I've developed in life. Everybody must have a dream. Without dream, there's no fun in life. Okay. So the way I work in is every dream I convert into a project. The project then becomes an action plan. Then I go after getting people, right people for the right job, form a team, and become a leader of the team to implement my projects. And I must say, over a period of five decades, I have been involved in several organizations, you know them, and I've been known as institution builder. I've had the pleasure of getting involved in several activities, several institutions, and this principle of empowering people and taking them with me has helped me. So dreaming and carrying a team is very important. Honesty is something which I believe in. Short, my parents taught me. Absolutely scrupulously honest. I would say because of which maybe I was not very successful in making money in business. I was the first-time entrepreneur in my family, starting my own agency. Because I was practicing highly value-based business. No give, no take. So when government business was being offered to me, provided I do this, do that, I said, I'm not interested in business. Because I believe that I'll have to do all my kinds of compromises to get the business, and later on similar compromises to get my money. Not interested. 2 things. Then I value relationships a lot. See, though I not earn big money, okay, I'm comfortable. God has been kind to me. At the end of my life, back end, I'm financially independent. I'm fine. I'm not having huge balance, enough to look after my needs. But my bank of goodwill is always overflowing. Number of contacts that I developed over a period of time, the last 5 decades, enormous. Legion of friends across, not that I'm in touch with them, but whenever we meet, we connect where we left because the kind of closeness, bond that we developed while we were working together, it is fantastic. And because of which, today, when anybody approaches me for any kind of help, I never say no to them. Because I find one telephone call to somebody, it works. I connect the two, it works. 70 to 80% of the time, the person is happy, I'm happy that he's happy, things go on. So relationships are very important. Honesty, relationships, dreams. And then my mother taught me another thing, and that is...
And the loose talk. And I said the loose talk. Are invaluable. The point.
No, loose talk. No, loose talk, correct.
No, I'm saying loose talk. I'm saying conversations are important. In life, conversations matter, a conversation can make a day. It can give you an idea.
Absolutely, You're right.
Conversations are the glue. They're the glue for relations. We can hear you.
You can hear me now? Yeah. Yes. Actually, I couldn't hear you. Your face is cut for that. Anyway, the other thing that my mother told to tell me was, whatever you do, earn a good name. Don't get a bad name. This is an obsession with me. That I don't like to hurt anybody. Of course, willy-nilly, I don't go out of my way to hurt. Inadvertently, if I hurt somebody, I don't know. But generally, I'm very careful. I don't hurt anybody. And she also say, don't try to take revenge on people who have been bad to you. It's not for you to take revenge. God will take care of them. But when that fellow realizes and he's in trouble, go and help him. That way you'll teach him a lesson better than trying to take a revenge. It's very difficult to follow, but I have tried my best and it stood me in good stead. A lot of people in life you come across who are trying to be nasty to you and things like that, But you try to be good to them, nice to them, they turn over, they become good to you and become lifelong friends. I have several such instances in life.
Mr. Rajan, before I bring in my colleague Kavi, my last question to you. Do you believe spirituality has a role in elongating one's life?
I don't know whether it elongates life, but I forgot to mention that another thing I believe in God. I'm not too much into spiritualism. I'm not too much into all these rituals and all that. I have unshakable faith in God. Total surrender to God, you say. My Perumal, Lord Balaji of Tirupati is my favorite God. Ganpati is my favorite God. These two my Ishta Devams, I call him, favorite gods, whom I pray every day, apart from quite a few others. I don't think they extend. What extends your life is good habits, leading a healthy life. Eat properly, good exercise, good thoughts. Try to do all that, then probably you'll extend your life. It's not because of your spiritual you extend your life. Yes, people say if you do yoga right from childhood, follow all the rituals very closely, probably you extend your life. But because of spiritualism, you extend your life is something which I don't agree.
Good. I want to bring in Kavi. Kavi, go ahead, ask your set of questions.
Thank you, sir. So, Mr. Rajan, sir, you've been in the advertising business for 43 years, and out of that, in rural marketing and communication for 33 years.
Yes.
So, sir, how have you seen this evolution? What are the changes you find in the way of working that time and now? The work culture, the people, their attitudes?
See change. I'm glad I'm out of it. In the old days, we had values. See, client and agencies, they were genuine relationship. They were not throwing out every 2 years. Relationships lasted for several years. They trusted you. You liked to work with them. You gave your life. That kind of thing has changed today. And I see that, today every client wants more for less. They will pay you less, but they want more from you. Am I right? It's happening in every field. And the way business is done is also changed completely. And if you take rural marketing itself, the information technology progress that's happened, with mobiles and all that, it has changed the way we communicate with rural folks. Mobile has changed the way we communicate with them. Lot of changes have happened. Unfortunately, I have not kept a track of all that. That's why I can't comment too much. But I can tell you, the world has changed. The world of advertising has changed. And true professionals don't enjoy the same kind of respect, at least I believe so, that we used to enjoy those days. In fact, I'm happy I'm not in the business now. Last 15 years, enjoying my new avatar as writer-author. No target, no billing, no collection, no headaches.
Okay.
No,
thank you, sir.
No deadlines to meet.
Yeah, correct.
But you've done your fair share of deadlines and timelines to meet. And
so what I do is I don't take on any job which is testing me.
So,
I don't take
Kavi, I think you're far off.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's time to enjoy what you do and do something that really gives you joy. For example, you talk about writing, talk about becoming an author of this book called Durga Niwas. You've written the biography of a building. If you had to write a sequel to, part 2 of this, what would that sequel be called?
In fact, a lot of people, it's only 146 pages. Especially people who have been in Bombay, who know something about Bombay, they are enjoying this book thoroughly. They all say we finished it in 1 sitting, 2 sittings. They're all saying that it could have been a bigger book. You could have described a little more, families, a lot more interest, a lot more anecdotes. Could be done. I'm not sure that I want to do that. I'll tell you frankly, when I became successful, I thought as a writer, I should try all genres of writing. So I did autobiography. I did a book on rural marketing, 2 books on my essays, collection of my essays, and then 1 collection of short stories, and 1 history of an association, Roundtable 41 Club. I've done a history of an association, and this novel. Next, I want to attempt a translation job from Tamil to English. I can read and I'm not able to write Tamil because I would have touched for the last 45 years, but I can speak, write Tamil. In fact, when I started my life as a student, I was an active member of Bombay Tamil Sangam, and I used to write Tamil plays and Tamil short stories and all that. That period is over. I can't do anything in Tamil now. English only I do, but I can attempt to translate something in Tamil into English. In fact, only today I have identified a book, collection of short stories by one of the authors here in Chennai. I will attempt to translate it. That's going to be my next book, my 7th genre of writing and 11th book, hopefully.
Congratulations. By the way, Kavi was in Bombay, he was in Delhi, and now he shifted to Bombay, at least temporarily. And
he must get that work culture.
I'm doing it from Delhi. We don't have someone from doing it in Chennai. If I had to say, when we are in 2021, tell us your predictions for 2021 or some trends you see happening. For example, Mr. Rajan, I keep saying we are in a 3C economy. Contactless, we're doing this contactless dialogue, and it's compassionate economy. It's not just about money and money is important. You got to pay your bills, you got to pay salaries, you got to pay taxes. All that, it's important. I'm not saying it's not.
Correct.
But after you've done that, or while you're doing that, compassion, collaboration, all these matters. So tell us, what are your top as you move into 2021? We're on the 5th day of 2021. It's 5th January today. What are the changes you see already that COVID has brought in the last 1 year?
Correct. It's brought us all closer, no doubt about it. See, my daughter has been inviting me to stay with her for last so many years, 10, 15 years. Come and stay for a week. I never did that because I was running around, she was running around. This COVID helped me stay with her for 3 weeks, enjoy her hospitality, do my job. That way became a greater, closer bond developed. And very funnily, I'm associated with Madras Book Club and quite a few other voluntary organizations. See, if for a physical meeting only 25 people turned up, for a meeting, Zoom meeting, I find 40, 50 people turn up. Convenience from home, participating in a meeting that's happening. So I would say that in the years to come, a combination of both will happen. I think every institution will have both physical meeting and also Zoom meetings. Wherever they want to save on time, money, etc., they will have Zoom meetings, where at least once a month. Nothing like meeting person individually and interacting. That's a fact. So I suppose both will happen simultaneously. That's one trend I see. Plus, working from home culture. This unfortunately,
Fantastic.
I'm not.
Would like to ask.
Pardon?
Work from anywhere, Mr. Rajan.
Correct.
Work from home or work from anywhere.
Anywhere. Absolutely. That's making a sea change.
Yeah. So all the best. We wish you luck in what you are doing, and I'm sure people like Kavi and me can learn. And we wish you luck in your book. Kavi, any last question before you let Mr. Rajan go?
No, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rajan.
Thank you. I enjoyed myself.
In touch, and hopefully
nice meeting you, Anurag, after a long time.
We wish you luck in your book. We'll wish you luck in your book. Thank you so much. I'll call you more often, Mr. Rajan.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.